Okay, so let's officially kick off the Women's Podcaster Party. So happy to see you all here, and hopefully we'll have some others join us. So we always start off by going around and giving everybody 2 minutes or so to introduce yourself. Share whatever you want to share. Um, Several of us have podcasts to share. If you're a guest, what do you like to guest on? And then we'll do some other fun stuff after that. So I will start because no one. Although when you're in a room full of podcasters, there's plenty of people willing to talk. I will say that.
Hopefully, they're not Michigan J. Frog and they just read it.
So I know everyone in the room, but hi, I'm Julie. I am a podcaster, speaker, coach, and advocate, and I help women own their voice, share their story, and grow their confidence through podcasting. I created this space 2 years ago now because I saw one thing that was missing in podcasting was spaces for women. You know, there is no category women's podcasts. There is no way to call yourself a podcast for women without just saying it. And so the space is just a space for women in podcasting who want to be in podcasting to meet, to network, to maybe find potential collaborations, but also learn together. A place where we can ask all the questions that maybe we don't want to ask in other rooms and all of that fun stuff. So I currently have 3 podcasts, which I do not recommend. The Story of My Pet, it will officially be 4 years old next month. I do think it's going to get paused after that point just because I don't love it as much as I used to, and that's okay, right? But I do have and am active with my podcast, Your Story, which is all about amplifying women's voices in podcasting. And my newest podcast, Still Becoming Women Unmuted, where I talk about all the things of interest to women. I've been doing some panels with that podcast, which is really fun to have 2 or 3 others with me to talk about topics. We've talked about healthcare access, chronic illness. We have some coming up that are mental health, building community for women, and also one about child-free women, as I am a child-free woman, talking about the cultural stereotypes and all of that. So that's kind of my new fun project, but we get to talk about women's issues and things that are of importance to women. So if you have a topic you think would be good for that, let me know. And now I'm going to let you guys all introduce yourselves. So Cheryl, since you're unmuted, I'll let you go first.
Oh, great. What? I can't hear you. No. Hi, I'm Cheryl Halling. I'm in Sonoma County, California, which is about 45 miles north of San Francisco, formerly from LA via Canada. And I am a voice talent and podcast host and producer of 2 podcasts. 19 Stories from Fear to Hope, my most recent guest, the wonderful Julie Marty-Pearson. And The Voice Kitchen, where recipes and voice talent blend, where I invite a voice talent into the kitchen to talk about a favorite family recipe, what it means for them, and talk about their career so people get a glimpse into the person behind the voice. Mm-hmm. And I've got some other things I've been working on that just after talking with Julie and some other people, just really ruminating on some ideas. And I ran it past another podcasting group yesterday. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, do that. So I know I'm not saying much about that other than that. And I have a guest for your Childless Not by Choice or Childless by Choice. I have a guest for you who's an author who was on my show, who's also a good friend, but she would be wonderful for you. So I'll send her your information when we're finished with this.
Absolutely. Love that. Thank you. And I have to say, Cheryl, that your podcast I had so much fun doing, but you gave me the best intro I've ever gotten on a podcast. Like, it was, you just have to listen to her intro if you want to learn how to do a great intro, because like I felt like I need to record that and play that for myself every morning.
And I had to remind you it's recorded.
Right. I mean,
part of the podcast.
Right.
Thank you.
I just, I think sometimes we're hurrying and doing the things, but even as hosts, we don't also do the research we should do before we interview someone. And one, I could tell you did your research and really looked at my stuff and what I do and what I've done, but also you really spent the time creating it and summarizing it in a way that would make me want to listen to the episode, even if I didn't know me or wasn't me. So I just have to shout you out because it was great and I so enjoyed it. So thank you. Okay, next up, Super Kate, who is a brand new podcaster. Her podcast launched this week. Yay!
It happened. It's crazy. It happened.
It
It's,
happened. It's
yeah,
real.
I'm a real girl now. Um, so yeah. Hi, Super Kate here, coming at you from uh, an area of Central Illinois that is very close to my area of Central Illinois. And my podcast is called Connecting with Super Kate, and it is an extension of my business, which is geared around helping all of those amazing, overwhelmed, and exhausted, I'm fine women out there, and getting them to a place where their nervous system is a little more regulated because they've got shit to do and they want to keep doing it. And they know they can feel better, but they are just so exhausted they don't know how to get there. And um, I'm just really fucking tired of women being tired. So this is, yeah, this is my current contribution to helping them get through that. Uh, Cheryl, I don't know if you are looking for guests, but I have some voice actor friends out there who are incredible. And one who I do think enjoys being in the kitchen. So yeah, we can connect later about that. But yeah, that's me. And
Yay!
it's out. It's out. There's two episodes, a trailer, two episodes, and a guided meditation. It will continue to be solo episodes, guided meditations, and guest episodes when I finally bring guests in. So there you go.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love it. Yay. Okay, and to another person who will soon be a podcaster herself, Connie, would you like to introduce yourself? Connie's podcast is coming in May.
Yes. Hmm. Thanks to Julie's help. So I am in near Denver, Colorado, and I've been an acupuncturist and yoga nut, teach yoga online. And then I wrote a book called Speeding to Compassion, Life Lessons and Humor to the High Road. And basically it's a book on, it uses driving as a metaphor for life. And when I was a real asshole on the road, I said, I need to take some of my own advice that I teach in yoga, that I in for acupuncture clients. And that's what it's about. My podcast is called The Compassion Lane. And really my goal is for more people to have more self-compassion for themselves and for others, and to have that understanding about common humanity, and that we're all pretty much there. We can be loving, we can be kind, and we can be jerks. And so I'm looking for people to guest that have a story about maybe taking the high road rather than the common road, about self compassion. And that's me. That's what's going on with me right now.
Yay! Which I think is such an important topic right now. I think a lot of us need more self compassion, need to give ourselves grace, and in doing so, we'll be able to have more compassion and empathy for others, which our world is definitely lacking a little bit of. Oh, I'm so excited. I love watching people launch their podcasts, especially people like Connie who said, I don't need a podcast. I'm just going to be a guest. And then she's like, wait, maybe I do need a podcast.
Well, it was my mantra. I'm not
Yes.
doing a podcast. Eh, but Podfest, that was my what do you call it, that gets you into drugs?
Light bulb
You're
moment.
thanks.
Love it. Okay, Eileen, up next. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Eileen McDonald. I do not have a podcast, but I do guest on different podcasts. I love to learn from Julie and everybody that's on. I've attended several of these. I haven't been in a while, so I'm glad to be back. And I know I'm excited. Jackie's podcast, it's awesome. So she gives you a lot of kudos for that. So that's awesome. I'm going to be a guest on hers probably in the next couple of weeks. I can't remember what day we scheduled it. So and this year, I'm kind of proud of myself. I've done, I think, six podcast interviews. So I think that's pretty good for me since last year, I think I only did about three. So I'm boosting up in that. So what I do is I've been in the holistic health world for 25 plus years, and I help women actually, I say breathe better, but what I do is I do breathing in a different way. I do behavioral breath work and really getting into the chemistry and the behavior of breath, not just the mechanics of breath. And so it really does make shifts in people at a cellular level. Plus, it changes, makes them become a little more have an ease and flow, so they're not flipping people off when they're driving, right, Connie? But it is we do need more compassion exactly in this world. So I love the title. I think that's awesome, and congratulations for yours. That's awesome. So yeah, I'm glad to be here and learn.
Yay. And I think that breath work is so important because I think sometimes we forget to breathe. We forget to stop and take a deep breath, and also even what all of you guys were talking about is even as hosts we don't stop and take a breath and like come into our zone before we record, and myself included. It's like I don't warm myself up. I don't warm my voice up. I don't really think through. You just jump on and go to the next. And so all of those things that a lot of you guys do in your business are so important, even as podcasters, as guests, as speakers, to how to prepare yourself before you step on stage or you hit record, because it does make a difference, and it also helps clear your mind, right? None of us want to be a guest or a host with our mind fogged up with 10 things that we're worried about, because that's not going to convert. So, okay, well, I am going to drop in the chat real quick the link if you want to come to our event in May. Our speaker in May are Amy and Nancy Harrington. They've been in the media business and podcasting for a long time. They have a community called the Passionista Project. They're very supportive of women and women of color, and they have a podcast. And so they're going to come and share their journey, and their sisters that do all of this together in a lot of ways. So I'm excited for them to come, and they will talk a little bit about like how to be a good guest, interview skills, some of that as well. And I'm not sure what happened to our supposed speaker today, but that's okay. We will roll with it. And if she does not show up at all, I will share her links in the follow-up email, but I'll wait and see if she can join us. I sent some messages, so I apologize if I keep clicking around. I'm just making sure she's not sending me a message back. So, since we are a room full of amazing women in business and podcasting and such, let's open it up to maybe let's share one thing. What is one thing that you are looking for support in currently in your business, in podcasting, anything that comes to mind if someone were to ask you that? I'm not sure. That's a good question. When is the date? In May? I believe it's the 28th. Yes, it is Thursday, May 28th at the same time as this one, 1 Pacific. So is that the week? Yeah, so that's the week of after Memorial Day. How are we that close to that? I do not know. I feel like it was just February. So, one of the things I'm seeing a lot of people right now is being overwhelmed by technology, by AI, how to use it, how not to use it, all of that. And a statistic came out recently, and I believe it was 51% of currently active podcasts are generated by AI. 51%. So what does that say to us? That says a few things. Podcasting is continuing to grow, so there's always going to be competition. But nobody's going to do it like you, first of all. The other side of that is, which is something I remind myself when I start to over edit, is don't edit out your humanity. And don't become a perfect speaker, a perfect guest, a perfect host, because those little ums or mistakes or re-saying a word you didn't pronounce correctly is how your listener knows you're a real person. And I think we're in a world where AI is taking up so much space. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it we're still not sure what's going to happen. That there are ways to use it to help you. I use it in podcasting, but I'm never asking it to create for me. I'm asking it to use my content to reshape it so I can put out other pieces of content. But knowing that many podcasts are being either partially or fully created by AI means we need to lead into our humanity, our realness, our connecting, our storytelling, and all of that. And yeah, super Kate.
So on rss.com, there's a thing that you have to click. Like if there's been any AI content in your stuff at all, you have to acknowledge, they say you should acknowledge it.
Right.
So my show notes I generate from AI. So I click that, but that's not my show. So
Right.
should I, and
That's
are
a
they
good
basing
question.
that percentage off of people using it for show notes, or
Mhm.
is AI physically making podcasts?
That's a good question. And I know that Alex Sanfilippo was the one that shared the data about that, so I'm going to look into it deeper because I didn't look at what exactly that means. And I will say YouTube also asks you that. There's a space you can click if part of this has been AI generated. And it is hard to know when to say yes and no because yeah, some of us do use it for starting point with titles or descriptions. But if we're generating it from our content, not from asking it a question, again, do we have to say that's AI or is it them just, so that's a very good question. I think that, and I think we're going to have these conversations more and more because it's like, how do you decide what is and what isn't in terms of when someone asks you that? Because I do personally think there's a difference in AI created versus AI assist. And so
Yeah.
I think those are important conversations for us to have as podcasters, as guests, even as speakers. I was in a speaker boot camp thing this morning and someone asked, they were telling us to do our one liners. Like, what is a one liner we would want people to walk away from when they hear us speak? And it's like, well, what if we hear someone else say something we really like? Can we use theirs? And they're like, well, you can let it inspire you, but you shouldn't take it word for word and say, this is mine. And so I think that's a lot of the gray area with AI is how much of it is us, how much of it is our words being created into different pieces than how we said it, but how much of it is also from us from the beginning. And a good example of this in the book world is my friend and fellow podcaster Becky Mullenkamp is releasing her book at the end of this month. And in the beginning of the book, she has a statement on AI that says, I wrote this book, but I did use AI in my research and outlining process. Everything else is from me. And so I think more and more we're going to need to make those kind of statements in our content and maybe even in our podcast show notes because we are using the tools that help us do things quicker, but we want to let people know that we created this. This is from us. This is not generated by for us. This is generated from us as humans, right?
So perhaps like this podcast was written by me, the show notes were written by AI or something
Yeah.
like that. Because honestly, like I would much rather spend the time writing the episodes and like have somebody else, something else do the show notes
Right.
because that's going to hit the SEO that I don't want to spend time learning.
Right. Well, and so
So
many applications, and not even just in podcasting, I think pretty much any software you use now has an AI component for something. I mean, even Google has Gemini that somehow turns itself on even when I don't want it in there, right? And so it is important for us to say, this is mine, but I used it in assisting or in creating something, even if we're using it in creating an image or something like that, because we don't want to act like we're claiming it as we created this ourselves. But it's still a fine line. But I like that idea of like a little something that's at the end of every show notes that says, this is my original thoughts and creation. AI was used in creating the show notes or whatever it may be.
and aren't captions done by AI also?
That's a good question. I guess, yeah. Like if you're in Descript and you upload a video, or even if you're in an audio editing app, if you apply captions, I mean, it Descript, it's taking it word for word from the transcript. So all it's doing is putting those words on the screen. So it's not creating it for you, but I guess technically the transcript, is that AI? I don't know. Oh my gosh,
My
all the
understanding was
questions that
like,
are coming up.
yeah, my understanding was like anything that you say, hey, I want captions on this for like Instagram or whatever, that
Oh,
is a that is a form of
form.
AI. It may have been an earlier form, that we've had around for a while now, but it is a form of AI. And also like with Descript, just clicking the studio sound button, that's an AI.
Hmm. Interesting. I didn't expect the conversation to go there, but I think that, well, I also do think that there have been forms of AI doing things for us that we didn't realize it was what we call AI, right? AI has existed within software for a while. It's just we're calling it that because these tools are solely AI for us to use. And so it is important to realize that tools are helping you. And again, if you upload something to Descript, it's creating a transcript word from what you said in the audio or video, but it's still utilizing technology to do that. So that is a very, I think maybe we need a AI speaker to come in and talk about these things. But I have seen some people mention, and there are some people who talk about AI and ethics, and like how do you balance, the use of technology with yourself and how you create things. I will say that when I started in podcasting in 2021, you had to pay a lot of money to get a transcript of your audio or video. And now I get a transcript in Descript, in Buzzsprout, in here, in there. Now I get so many, it's like, which is the best one, right? So I think we've advanced to the point where we're all using it and sometimes we don't realize it. And so it is that awareness. But, and I do think true, like, what I call traditional podcasters who really are about the audio and that connection to the audio. We're not using it maybe as much because it really is about the words and the audio itself and not all the other pieces. And so yeah, that's a really interesting conversation. Interesting. Okay.
May I, Julie? I would really love if there was someone, whether it's Alex or someone who has done an in-depth study. Because when I hear AI produce podcasts, I mean, well, you just touched on all the areas where we use it,
Right.
but there are podcasts that are strictly their AI voices.
Right.
They're. Can you not hear me?
Yeah, no, she was just agreeing with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's where I wanted the delineation
Right.
because
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, that's
yeah.
because um
There is a difference between completely generated voice, text, words, everything versus us using it as a tool to
as a
help us
tool.
create.
Yeah, just like AI, don't get me started on AI and voiceover.
Oh.
And I may be pushing some buttons for people who use it for their intros or outros or what have you, but yeah, I mean that's a whole other discussion about how many people in voiceover are losing business because of AI.
Right.
And within music, I can in a second, almost 3 to 5 seconds, hear especially songs, music that's
Mm.
generated by AI. And there's a sound to it that just, well, my husband a musician. I used to sing. I grew up in a musical family, so it really hits home for me. But outside
Right.
of that, it's just the whole irony and dichotomy and hypocrisy of, you're talking about music communicating heart and soul, but you're using an AI voice. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go, but I feel the same way about podcasting,
Right.
because I'm audio. I don't do video. So when someone puts on their headphones, they want to hear two people talking. They don't want to hear
Right.
two robots talking. But
Yep.
I will add to that, however, we have a whole generation of people being raised on these AI voices. So to
Yep.
them, it's no big deal,
Right. It's
right?
normal.
It's
Quote.
normal. Whereas, and this has been said in a couple of groups that I've been in before, is that if you're hearing about a tornado or a tsunami or warnings about fire. I live up in an area we have lots of fire. I don't care if it's delivered by a cricket. I want the information, right?
Right.
Well, I do care about crickets because sometimes that just means you hear nothing. But you get my point. It's like I
Right.
want to hear the facts.
Right.
But anyway, I didn't mean to go off onto
No, but I think
tangent
it's
there.
important because there are a lot of areas of not just podcasting, but business AI is becoming so prevalent in. And one of the ways that I see it, which annoys me as a host, are these copy paste pitches that I get sent in DMs and emails and all these things. Like, guys, this should not be how you're doing it. You should be listening to the podcast. You should be tailoring it to the podcast, to the host, to your unique value proposition. And I just think there's so much junk coming out that it's getting harder and harder for us to weed through what's real and what's not, and what real means anymore. Like, right? And this is an example I'm going to use that isn't specific to AI, but it's about the generation, the way they're being raised. And so, if you know anything about music, Coachella is huge. It happened the last couple weeks. And in the second weekend, the headliner, Sabrina Carpenter, brought out Madonna. And a good percentage of the audience didn't react because they didn't know who she was. And it's like, what are you talking about? Queen Mother Madonna is on the stage. You should be freaking out. And if Madonna hadn't been here, whether you like her music or not, Sabrina Carpenter wouldn't exist. Taylor Swift wouldn't exist. Those are women that paved the way for these current women in music. And it's this idea that me as a Gen Xer and boomers and even some millennials, we were raised on music and we learned to appreciate music. We had to listen to our parents' music in the car. I was raised on big band music because that's my dad's generation. I appreciate all forms of music, but it seems like the younger generations, because they can access so much current information at any given time, they are missing the previous generation, the appreciation of different types of music. And case in point, Gen Z and Gen Alpha a lot of them had no idea who Madonna was. And it's like, guys, it's not even about liking, it's about understanding the history of pop music in the US and like why it's important and how it impacts culture. So I think it goes back to the sources people use for information aren't always accurate. Even AI itself is based more on male patterns of thinking and information than it is on women. And, people say all the time, but people don't listen, that just because you ask AI a question doesn't mean it's all the correct information. It depends on the sources it's pulling from. So I think it's important for us to think about that as podcasters and guests, because our personal experiences, our personal beliefs, our stories, all of that is what makes us unique and is going to stand out from it. But also, how do we stand out in a world full of this information and even misinformation?
Can I? It's so interesting what you just said, Julie, because I literally was listening on NPR yesterday, or on PBS rather. Someone speak to that very thing, that the older generation who has the source information uses actually ChatGPT, or in this case Claude, because we all want to move away from chat, right?
Right.
They know how to guide the questions because they know the original information, right? Whereas someone who's younger doesn't realize they're being fed misinformation. But in regards to music, what gives me hope, I work part-time in a boutique, and we have this little area where you can do bagfuls of beads and buttons to make your own jewelry, or and we get a lot of younger people coming into the store now, where traditionally it's been older people. But I always show up and change the music. I love my boss and I love classical music around the house, but when I'm in a store, I'm thinking energy, and not necessarily like, there are stores I will literally walk out of because the music's so loud and it's just so it's terrible. Right. In my opinion, it's beauty in the ears of the beholder. Anyway, there was she was about 18 or 19, and she's filling her buttons, and there was a John Denver song. She knew every word. She was singing along, and I'm like, how does a 19-year-old know? So I asked her, I said, oh, you seem to really know this song and enjoy it. I said, it's one of my favorite John Denver. She goes, oh, yeah, my folks played it, and it's a great song, and, the writing's good. It's so much better than what's going on in, with my music. And I was like, so they are out there listening. And then the irony of that is, my husband and I were in a store about a week after that, there was a remake of that very same John Denver song. So whether she knew, but she said she knew it from her folks. But
Right.
it's being, there's a reason our music is still around, right?
Right.
So I know I kind of went off on a tangent, but the very first point you were making is there's the advantage of us knowing where the source information came from and how to guide those conversations. So
Right.
um, yeah, but that's interesting to, Madonna, what's that? Isn't she a
What?
saint? Was she the Virgin Mary? Was she like
Well, and I think music shapes a lot of us. I mean, I have vivid memories of listening to Michael Jackson and Madonna when new songs came out. We had to wait to listen to the radio for hours to hear them played, and I grew up in a neighborhood where we all play together. We even had a full on dance recital in my parents' garage, and I danced to Like a Virgin. And now I'm thinking, why did you let me dance around to Like a Virgin at like 7 years old? Like, real, it's so funny now. But it's also like that those things, remind us of memories. Memories flood back when we hear music. And a lot of the music played at my wedding was big band because that's what I grew up on with my dad, and I appreciate it. But then when the band took a break, we played 80 songs from the stereo, to balance it out. And I think that it just brings up that we are the oracles of our experience. And so legacy comes up a lot for me in conversations, in podcasting. And a lot of the reason we turn to podcasting or writing a book or whatever it may be is because it is our way of leaving our stories, our legacy, our experience for others to learn from. And it's so important for us to acknowledge that is us, that is ours, that is humanity, and that some of what is created in the world is created from nothing. It's not actually created from people and experiences. And so, as guests, as hosts, as speakers, we want to lean into that because that's what's going to make us even more unique and stand out. But I think it's also hard because even when we're scrolling, sometimes I think, is that real or is that made up? And I hate having to wonder that. And it's getting harder to be able to tell if something is real. So, and even in podcasting, I meet people all the time like, oh, yeah, I want to start a podcast. And I'm just searching it on YouTube. And yeah, I'll just figure it out. And it's like, okay, great. But you might want to ask some people who've actually done it and get their take and because you may get some tips that are going to save you time and save you from making mistakes that other people have made, right? So I think again it's that balance. Oh, I love that your client loves Kenny Rogers. So I have to tell you the story now that we're gone down this rabbit hole. But my very first concert as a little kid was at the California Mid-State Fair, which is a huge fair on the Central Coast every year. And they have a lot of people come. And I saw Kenny Rogers and his guest was Dolly Parton. And they sang that duet they sang together. I know every word to Gambler. Let me just tell you that much. One time it came on something, I started singing it. My husband looked at me like, what is happening? Again, it's the experiences. We're flooded with the memories, all of those things. But I also think it's something interesting to think about in podcasting. It's like, how do we want to leave these nuggets of things that people will remember and want to listen to and keep listening to? And a lot of it is our stories and all of that. But there also is this mountain to climb in going against technology that can create some of it faster than we can and do it differently. But we really want to be the real voice and the real story behind what we're creating. Well, there was an AI rabbit hole, so there we go.
I have had I really I went into business for myself about 2019 and started having a business coach and all this stuff and eventually as I moved into coaching and not just Pilates and movement, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm just now barely beginning to understand how to market myself in the marketing talk that we've all been taught. And that was like right around 2022. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have to sit down and actually learn how to say things in the way that everybody says things. And then, now we're in mid 25, this switch of maybe I actually don't have to say things like that anymore because everybody's tired of hearing things like that. And it's the same thing with when AI is saying something, it sounds a certain way,
Yep.
it phrases it a certain way. And it's this amazing permission slip that came out of nowhere for us to be unapologetically like terrible or imperfect
Right.
or, however you want to look at it. But like we get to really screw it up. And that, I mean, probably eventually AI is going to figure out how to screw things up and
Yeah. I think it
appear
probably
this
already
way.
is, but
Yeah. I mean, technically, Anthropic's mythos knows how to cover up its own mistakes.
Mm.
So that's fun. With a terribly, uh, yeah,
Well,
terrible.
and I also think, like, even for me, when I started podcasting, I was taught how to edit audio. I thought, oh, I need to edit all the pauses and the ums and but it's like that's our natural way of speaking. That's how humans speak. So you don't want to edit it out. And I'm actually doing less editing now because I want it to be obvious we are real people laughing and interrupting each other and doing all of that within a podcast. But we still want it to sound good. We still want it to be easy on the ears in that respect. And yeah, so I mean, for me, I think in a lot of ways, what's happened in the last 5 years in podcasting is everybody realizing we don't all have to do it the same. We get to choose what it is. And if we have an intro, if we have music, if we have guests, all of that. But it also makes it like, but is the way I'm doing it helping me and helping my business and helping make me do what I want to do? So I think it's an ongoing. But I agree. There are a lot of people out there saying you have to market this way or you have to do email this way. And it's like, no, we don't because we can't all do it the same way because that's not going to help everybody. So I don't know. So, other questions, comments, anything within the space of podcasting, whether it be hosting or guesting, things that have come up for you that you've learned or something maybe you want to learn more about? This is the space to ask or share.
Um, I have a question in regards to shorts,
Mm.
as they're called, or clips. And so I don't know if I've ever, I think I have seen some. What do you do, Julie or Cheryl? Do you do clips and then, put them in? Like, say you did a podcast yesterday, and 2 weeks from now you're going to post it, or drop it. When do you put those clips in or send them out? Where?
Well, I can say for me, it depends on my schedule. I'm not great about every time I put an episode out, I put a clip out first or after or any of that. But I do try to do at least one clip or reel for an episode, and sometimes I do that and I do a soundbite. A lot of hosts like Buzzsprout and RSS allow you to create a soundbite right from inside the hosting platform. And so it's just a static image with a soundbite overlaid on it. And I think that's what you did to Cheryl when my episode came out. You put out the little clip first and then the episode came out. So you can speak to what your process is. Um, I mean, I think it's great because it's an introduction. Some people do it before the episode comes out and say, hey, this comes out tomorrow or next week. Or some people do it the same day to get people to want to go listen. So I will say there's no right or wrong way. But clips, video clips, audio clips on social media tend to do better engagement wise than static. But again, that depends vastly on the platform.
Um, that's a great question. And I've just recently switched it up. What I normally have done is, and it's not, I started out long time ago, because I'm coming up on my 6 year anniversary in June for 19 Stories, and 3 years this November for the Voice Kitchen. Well, thank you. However, I beat myself up because it hasn't been consistent every week, although the past couple of months has been every other week for the Voice Kitchen, every other week for 19 Stories. But yeah, when I first started, it was every week, and I'm just me. I don't farm out any of my
Right.
work. So I was doing audiograms, which was a static image with the audio clip, because I'm all audio. I don't do video clip. But what I've started to do is I do a 1 minute. I call it a video because I take images that either my guest has supplied me. I'll pull from their socials, their website, whatever I can find. And then I do a montage of clips on this template I've created and add the audio. I add visual effects. And so that's my 1 minute thing that I used to do the day before I released the episode. Now, this week with the Voice Kitchen, I released the 1 minute montage on Monday. On what's today? Thursday.
Thursday.
Yesterday, I did something I've never done before, except for I've done it for my voiceover business, but this first time I've done it for a guest, where I've done I'll call it a quote card, where I've done their image, I've done a quote from their episode, my logo up in the upper left-hand corner with the date it's going to drop, which was today. And that I was surprised. That got some really good response. And when I posted on Instagram, I put audio with that as well. It's just, that's a static image. And then today, of course, release the episode, but then I do the post on my socials, and then on my stories, I'll either add some audio or maybe some visual effects. So it's been like a 3 quote card would be good for Pinterest. Yes. Yeah. I've had a note on my desk for 5 years, 6 years, to put my podcast on Pinterest. I even took a webinar on putting my podcast on Pinterest. As with everything, time, energy, effort, and money, I'm just exhausted because, again, it's me. So if someone, it's a great idea. I know Pinterest is becoming more and more and more popular. Are you using Pinterest, Super Katie?
No, I brought it up because Julie just last month had a guest
our
talking to
last
us about
speaker talked about Pinterest for podcasters.
Yeah, that was right at the day after I was on another webinar about Pinterest it was the same person too. Actually, she was in New England Podcasters.
Oh, right.
Group.
Yeah. Andy spoke for New England. And
absolutely.
I think a reason that she's talking about is her business is kind of all that is because a lot of us are speaking to women, and women tend to be more on Pinterest. I think the data was like 70% of people on Pinterest are women, but also Pinterest is unlike other social media where it's not all the noise. It's just people going there to find certain things, how-tos, images. And when I've been creating mine on Pinterest, and quotes was one of the things. I said just the words on a clean backdrop. People click it because if the quote grabs them, they're going to want to read more and see what it came from and what the content is. So even just a pin that is nothing but, the words is even possible there. And I was thinking that when she was talking about the quote card, Pinterest came in my mind too. Super K. I was like, yes, Pinterest. Because what I'm finding is there's nothing wrong with promoting your stuff on social media. I still do it on Instagram, but what I don't find is a connection from people going from there to listen to it. And so, but Pinterest, that is really what people is for. It's people clicking on links to read a blog, to listen to something, to go download whatever you're talking about. So that is why some podcasters are having, some good growth there. I just started doing it in the last 2 months, so it's very slow. People are looking at my pins, but only a couple of them has anybody actually clicked on or pinned or saved or whatever you call it. So again, like podcasting itself, it's a slow burn. But I do think it's a nice place because it's really easy to create them. I now have a template where I just copy it and make a copy for my next episode and change the images and add different words. And you can schedule ahead of time up to a month. So you can honestly do your pins for a whole month and not have to do anything but just go check in on them. It's not as much about engagement like it is on the other platforms. So it is definitely a great tool for podcasters like most of us that do it all themselves and don't have time. Like I can post to Instagram, but I don't also have time to go see if people are commenting and commenting back and all those things you have to do for the engagement. But back to Connie's question, I think that clips are important, but I don't also want my clients to spend a bunch of time creating a ton of clips because, again, going from IG to your actual podcast doesn't happen a whole lot. Yes, clips and reels get you good engagement on the platform, but the platform wants people to stay on it, so it doesn't want to push stuff that's telling people to go somewhere else, if that makes sense, right? So YouTube is a great place if you are doing video, or even if you're not, because I have my podcast go as video, but I also have the audio overlaid on a static image. And I will tell you, both types of episode gets views. Sometimes the audio gets more, because even myself, I may have YouTube up in the background, but I'm not watching it. I'm listening as I'm doing something else on my computer. And shorts get a lot of engagement, and you can connect a short to a video. So you can, when you post a short on YouTube, there is a space where you can say, is there a related video? So if someone's watching a short and wants to watch a full episode, they can move because it's all within the same platform. So on there, it's a little more helpful because they can then go find and subscribe to your channel or watch a full episode. So that's at least my experience, in terms of that. But I have been noticing quotes, even just images of quotes, carousels are getting good engagement on Instagram too. And quotes do well on Facebook because people like to hear a quote and then you get some discourse. Recently I posted on Facebook. I had no idea I was going to get this response. I've been using Podmatch a lot, and I require a pre-interview for guests I don't know, who I've never met before. And I posted about the fact that I had a couple people who pushed back on me. One actually said to me, well, all of my information is in this bio and on my page, and you should be able to tell I'm a great guest by just reading it. I don't want to do a pre-interview. And I said, I understand. But I require to people I don't know. And then she responded again, okay, I'm waiting for you to schedule the recording. And I'm like, I said to you that I required this. And so it was interesting to get this really big pushback from someone. And it's also like, again, reminding myself, it's my podcast. I can say no to whoever I want to. But I had no idea the reaction I was going to get. That post got so many comments and people were spicy about it. And there was some guests on there that like, I don't get paid to be on your podcast. I don't have time for a pre-interview. And I was like, well, then you're not going to be on my podcast. Like, I was really surprised at the reaction. And I think I'm still getting, I don't even remember. I think at one point there were 70 some comments on that post. I had no idea the reaction I was going to get. And it was both sides of yes and no, it's good or bad. But ultimately, it was really this discussion around, it's my podcast. I get to decide for myself, and anybody that doesn't like it isn't a good fit for me, right? And I just saw data today that there are, on average, 47 guests for every one active podcast. That's how many guests are out there looking and how many podcasts are looking for guests. So in that sense, you don't want to be spicy because, again, no, you're not paying to be on my podcast, but I'm paying to create this podcast that you are getting a platform for, right?
Thank you. People have no idea the amount of work
Nope.
that goes into producing a podcast. Now, if you have a team, even then, you've got to pay them. You got to pay your editors. You got to pay your. Yep. They have no. It's like they're doing you a favor. And no offense, Eileen, because I know you're guesting right now. I just please, present company excluded. And by the way, I just dropped in what my quote card that I did for.
I love that.
For Mark. Doesn't he have a joyful face?
Yes.
Doesn't he have
and I love that the way you did it, because a lot of times people think it's the quote has to be big, but it's his face and then you read what he said, so you're also grabbing attention with it. So I love that. I love that format.
He inspired me to do that. Like I said, I had never done it for a guest. I've done it for my own, VO stuff, but getting back to guesting, it's really interesting. Like, I love authors. And because I've done some good interviews with authors, I get a lot of publishers approach me, and I'm very honored. But I don't interview an author without reading the book. I just don't. And I've heard other people interview authors that haven't read the book, and I've
made that mistake myself.
Oh, okay. Well, so...
but sometimes we don't know until we do it and we realize,
exactly.
I should never do that again, right?
Exactly. Right, exactly. So... it's all a learning process, but for anyone to get spicy with you, that would tell me, oh, they're going to be a joy to interview.
Right. But I'm also glad you mentioned authors because this is an important thing that a lot of people as authors, Connie included, were guesting to help promote their book. And that's a great reason to do it, but be upfront about it because some hosts don't want that. We don't want you to just come on because all you're going to do is promote your book. And I've also learned the hard way that just because someone is a good writer and can tell a good story in the written form does not mean they can speak well and be interviewed proper. Like one of the worst interviews I've ever had was on my pet one that I was so excited. A publisher reached out to me the first time. Of course they can come on because, I was new. I didn't know. I was like, it was like pulling teeth to get more than a couple words out of her. And I have never used that episode because it just wasn't good. I didn't enjoy doing it, so I know people would enjoy listening to it. And so, again, that goes back to the power of it feels good to have authors and publishers reach out to you and say, our fabulous author wants to be on your podcast. But just because of that doesn't mean you have to say yes. And I would now never have an author on I haven't read their book because I would want to understand and have more research behind what we're talking about. And just because someone has a book doesn't mean it's a good book. Like, right? Just like podcasts. Just because I have a podcast doesn't mean it's a quality podcast. So it is about doing our own research. But it is interesting now to see this kind of evolution of guesting, to realize even on Podmatch, which I love using, I have a lot of great experience with, there are those people who are just about the numbers and how many podcasts they can be on in a month, in a year, or whatever it is. And those are not the people I want because I also don't want someone who's been on 10 podcasts saying the same thing on all 10 podcasts. And this is someone, I love Michelle Obama. I am a fan. I will read her books. But when she was putting out one of her new books, she was on like 12 different podcasts in a month. And I'm like, why am I going to go listen to the other 5 when I pretty much got the story here on these first few? And so that's also an interesting thing as a host. Just because someone's popular or well known doesn't mean you want them on your podcast, because more than likely, if they're quote famous in some way, they're not going to do a lot of promotion for you, right? And they probably have already been on a lot of podcasts, and maybe if they're pushing a book or some new thing, they may be doing a lot back to back to back. An example of that is Dan Levy. He just had a new show come out on Netflix. I have seen him on so many different things, on podcasts, on TV shows, but what I've noticed is every one of them is different. Every one of them is totally different. He's telling different stories. They all ask him about Catherine O'Hara, of course, but he what I noticed was, you can tell he's good at what he does. He would bring out a different perspective or a different story about her or whatever it was in each interview he did, because he's smart and he knows no one's going to listen to the other ones if he's saying the exact same thing every time, right? And so that's also a lesson for us as guests too, how we share what we want to share. And I realize we're coming to the close of the hour, so I'm sorry our speaker never showed, but I think we had a great conversation despite that. Yeah. So if you guys come up with something, a topic, an idea, a thing you would love to hear a discussion on, like we've just kind of had naturally, let me know. I love to find speakers to come in and share a topic like I did with Pinterest last month. And, now I'm going to be looking at some potential AI speakers, because I think it's important for us to just stay up on what's happening in the world, but also have experts specific to things that we can ask questions of, because no one, including myself, can be experts on all aspects of podcasting. It's just too vast, and I feel like it's expanding every day. I am not a video expert. I am not an AI expert, so I'm happy to bring in those people to share with us. So feel free at any time to reach out to me if you think of something you would love for us to see seen covered in these events.
Julie, if we want to get a hold of anyone here in the room, is it in the how do we do that besides?
So thank you for that, because what I forgot to do is take a picture. So I'm going to take a picture, and then what I do is I post the picture on different socials and I tag everyone. That way you'll get tagged and you'll be able to see everybody else. So let's take a picture. I will give us a countdown. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Sometimes my computer takes a minute to grab it.
Connie's cheating. She's putting hearts before her.
Yes. Sometimes
That's
we do
cheating?
that.
I'm
No.
not coordinated enough. I'm smiling and trying to figure out the reaction at the same time.
And I'm in a lot of communities that tell you to do that, but my problem with it is I always end up with the heart right in front of my face.
That's why I
And
thought
then-
she was doing that. So I
to
was like,
hide.
I want to see your beautiful face.
Well, I just want to thank you all. I'm so glad that we still had this space to chat and connect with each other. I'm so happy to see some of you I haven't seen in a while, but also be here to congratulate Super Kate on her new podcast, Connecting with Super Kate. Check it out. And Connie's podcast coming very soon, The Compassion Lane. And of course, Cheryl's podcast, not just because I'm her newest episode, but check out 19 Stories. It is a great podcast. It really is the root of storytelling, which I love. And, you know, there's nothing better than hearing people share stories that inspire us, but also to, yeah, there you go. Eileen's got it pulled up on her phone. I love that. And so again, I will probably tomorrow at this time of the day, I will send out a link with the recording to this. I always put the recordings up on YouTube for anyone who couldn't make it live. And please feel free to share. We are doing this again. I do have a date in May and June on the calendar. Even if it's just this and us networking and connecting, I love to have this space for us to do that. So thank you all for spending this
Great.
hour with
Wonderful
me and
meeting
everyone
all of
else.
you.
I
Wonderful.
appreciate
Wonderful meeting
you.
everyone.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
You too. Bye bye.
Thanks.